Recording is in progress. Okay, very good. Anybody has any questions? I take that as a no. Yeah. Anyone? Okay. I take that as a no, but just feel free. We've got a good group of people. I think we understand each other more, but we will talk about agile project management. Okay. All this while,
Hello,
yes, is it Komal? Yes.
Komal. Yeah, actually, yesterday I was reading this book, so I have one doubt. That
Yes.
portfolio management, can you explain in short once again?
Yeah.
Because I was getting confused in that project, program, and portfolio.
Very good. Thank you for asking that question. I said in general, you know, why are projects taken? Okay. And I can take reference of many companies, but let's take an example of, let's say, Samsung. Okay. Samsung is a company which manufactures mobiles. There are other things that they also manufactures. That's fine, but I'm really purely talking on the their mobile division. And when you look at the mobile division, when you look at their vision and mission, they really want to be the world leader. And I'll probably put the word called world leader in the world of technology. There are many segments they get into. They are into electronics, they are into technology, they are into mobile, they are doing many things, but they want to be the leader. That's the aspiration that you have. That's probably the mission you have. Okay. Now we all understand that everybody has a goal. Organization also has a goal, and that goal can also keep revising. You understand that many times people have a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan. They have certain milestone. There are certain objective. There are certain place, that certain distance they would want to cover over a period of time, and based on that, they set up their mission and vision. And we took an example of Samsung. We said we want to be the world leader in the world of technology. Great, that is the vision they have. Okay. Now, if you want to achieve that vision, which is my goal, and this is where I want to go, then I probably want to ensure that everybody within my organization wants to perform and deliver. Unless and until everybody in my organization delivers and are successful, we will definitely not go ahead and drive results and success. So it is about the strategic goal. It is about, I probably put that word ST, strategic goal, that I have. It is linked to my vision. This is where I want to go me. And within an organization, I will have regular work, which is about my operation work. We say day in and day out, I do the same thing. I take a mobile phone, I produce that mobile phone day in and day out. I sell that mobile phone day in and day out. That's operations. Okay. Assuming Samsung wants to go ahead and manufacture a new mobile, a new trend of mobile, or probably release the existing, the new version of mobile, then a project comes into picture. At the same time, assuming that they want to launch a new set of, let's say, electronic TV, okay, and probably smart TV they want to manufacture. To manufacture a small project, I could have many related projects which could be there. Okay, those set of related projects are generally called program. Okay, I'll probably do PR. Okay, so we have a defined set of work that we do day in and day out. One is a new invention. We are trying to release the new versions of mobile. Second, we also are having to release. We want to release a set of, a new smart TV, and it is a big project, which means I will have multiple other projects combined together, and probably get into, driving and getting to an outcome of the TV. So within an organization, the mix of operations, project, program, okay, there could be also projects which are linked to each other. There are projects which are not linked to each other. All these three things, operation, project, program, are actually connected to a bigger goal of the organization. Everything comes under portfolio, P-O-R-T, I will put. So combination of operation, project, program, linked, not linked, everything comes under the big umbrella of portfolio, and that portfolio is linked to strategy, and that strategy is linked to my strategic vision or mission or goal that I want to achieve. So in nutshell, if I talk about portfolio, I'm probably talking the whole world in the organization, but with an intention that I have a plan. I have thought about the goal, and I said I probably want to reach as an organization here. But anything that is a part of my organization, whether it's project, whether it's program, whether it's operations, all those things will be a part of a group called portfolio, and those portfolio will be linked to my goal strategy, which is nothing but my mission and vision. And eventually that is what portfolio is all about. It's linked to my strategy.
Okay.
Okay, now when you read your book, I'm glad you read that book, and when you read that book,
Yeah.
you will find it more connected.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
You are welcome. You're welcome. Very good. We dig into project agile project management. All this while we were talking about our our style of project management. Last time we said we wanted to build a house. And when you build a house, first you will say, oh, which land do I buy? Can I really have, how does it look like? Can I draw something? And probably I will eventually have a house. That is classical project management. Okay. But there is also another set. You remember life cycle project can be driven into different ways. We said it can be driven the way classical project management is driven, is our predictive life cycle, or you could have a mix of small little pieces, which are iterations, which is iterative life cycle, or we have adaptive life cycle, which is where agile comes into picture. Let's go to the first slide. Okay, and then let's talk about this a little more. Okay, now this is a statistics, okay, which was published from the study which was done in 2015, and it talks about a data for anything which ranges between 2011 to 2015. It really talks about total projects which were released between 2011 and 15. Now this was very confined to software projects. You guys know software, isn't it? It could be an ERP, it could be an office, it could be your office system, it could be an office application, it could be a Avaya application, it could be a network management solution. All these are software. Right? So during that period of 2011 and 15, we did a study of what was the outcome? What, how did project fare within that phase of 5 years period? Did they do good? Did they do bad? Did they do all right? They looked at the data for last 5 years and realize, and maybe you can see my mouse pointer, that only 29% of the project were successful. The other were challenged and failed. Okay, this is purely with software project. Okay, so you need to understand that 71% of the project either failed or challenged. Now you would really understand what is the difference between challenged or failed. Let's quickly give you a little understanding on challenged and failed, and we'll talk about that in some time. So you know that everything is about KPIs and KRAs, right? KPIs are nothing but key performance indicator. Today, if I want to understand, or if Komal's manager wants to understand whether she did the job correctly or not, probably you'll have an appraisal that happens at the end of the year. But in the beginning of the year, you'll have some goals that you need to do. You will have certain performance criteria that you need to be achieving. Right? Similarly, for project also, you'll need to have a defined KPIs, which means one of the top three KPIs that you'll always have, that did you meet your scope? Did you meet your schedule? Or did you meet your time? Now, sometimes when you meet your scope, schedule, and time, which means project is successful, you deliver. You were expected to complete the project within 6 months of time. You were to expected to finish within a budget of $20,000, and you were supposed to complete around 98 line scope items. Fine, you managed to do that. Wonderful, isn't? Which means your project is successful. When you say a project is challenge, probably you managed to finish your scope, but you took a lot more time and a lot more money to complete this, which means your project was challenged. And if you actually fail in all your KPIs that are defined for the project, that means that you actually did not deliver to your project KPI commitment, performance commitment. You did not really deliver what was expected. So when you look at that view or that purview of project management, you realize 71% of the project were either failed or were challenged. Now, everybody was wondering what's going wrong. Why do we need to? Why that many projects are failing? And then they realize some challenges with the current model. Okay, and they understood. Okay, well, the classic project management is great, but I think there are some limitation that comes with the classical project management. Like what? Uh, like for example, you really don't get to see the product till the end of the life cycle. Okay, again, coming back to our house example, you want to build that house, you know there's a land which is there, you probably get an architect who will go ahead and design, but only when you complete the project, whether it's 6 months or 1 year, you actually don't see that project. So till the time you have that house coming up, you'll really not be able to see that. You really don't know whether the project is successful or not successful. This was very predominant in softwares because as long as the product is not out, you really don't know, because all this while it's still on paper, we're still not able to understand whether it's going to make difference. Is it coming the way that we have visualized? It's a long time, 6 months to 1 year before you actually see the product. And they also understood that each time, if you had a problem in between, and if you look at this graph here, that we realize that assuming that you spend 3 months of your you know uh, product work, and then much later when a UAT happens, and then you realize the product is not correct, or you have a lot of bugs into the product, which means I've actually lost 3 months of the time. By the time I really have to wait for a UAT to happen, or an SIT to happen, or a performance testing to happen, realize, oh my God, this is exactly not what I wanted. Now, I did a lot of planning. I did a lot of extensive documentation. I call all the stakeholders. Everybody said this is exactly what we wanted. We defined that as a part of the plan. We went the 3 months in the project when the UAT happens, and I realized, my God, this is not what I wanted. There is something wrong. There's a bug in that software. So I've lost 3 months, which means I have to go back again, log a change request, and start probably working from the beginning, because now then there is a problem there. We have to go ahead and fix the bug. I still have to go the whole process of planning, execution, and I really go into testing. That's where I really will go and get an opportunity to check again that, oh my God, there is a problem there. Okay, that's another problem that we identified with Wharton model. There was a lot of risk, there was a lot of uncertainty, because it's still not visible to you, it still is a part of your plan. And they said, okay, I think we probably, we need to get over the limitations that we have. If I have to go ahead and define a comparative model of what classical project management is and how does it really differ from traditional project management, we took an example of the software project last time. Most time we will probably have a defined plan. Then we start coding and writing a lot of information. Then you have the build ready, and then you probably have a testing in between, and you'll release it. Then only After doing all those stages and phases and work, and finally when the release and deployment happen, I will get the value which is created. But Agile need not wait for a phase to go through the whole cycle and realize, my God, this is not really what I want. Okay. I need to have a model which does a periodic check of the build, the release, and testing together. And I don't have to really wait for the whole phases to get over to kind of understand, are we doing all right or are we not doing all right? Okay. That's why Agile believes in releasing small pieces, small chunks, small iterations, and you will see that the velocity at which small little pieces get evolved, there is a word called iterations, and there is a word called progressive elaboration. We will look at that. We will really, we always talk about a word called it's iterative, it's evolving, it's progressive elaboration. Sometimes when you actually define a plan, you really don't know how it's going to be succeeded. Assuming we give a project to Sachin, and I say, Sachin, can you make a phone under the 20,000 budget, which can be given to probably the world, but you need to make the best phone which is available in today current market segment. Now, either Sachin can have an extensive plan and you start going around this and do it, but now there is a task which is given to Sachin. Sachin, you need to go ahead and roll out this mobile phone. It needs to go to the world. It needs to be within 20,000 budget. Can you do it? Now, rather than Sachin probably giving the whole phone at the end of the 6 months, he says, maybe what suppose if the plan fails? And I'm not really very sure. How does it really look like? I just don't know how it can be. So rather than I building the whole phone, I probably start designing small specifications, go for a review and see whether it's fine. Then I probably get into maybe the language part and see whether it's working fine. Maybe I will only build 3 or 4 functionality and then see whether it works fine. Maybe I'll attach the hardware to it and see whether it works fine. So I will release that small little chunks because I'm not very sure. This is a great project that they gave me. We've not really done this in the project. We want to move faster on this, but I really don't know how does it look like. And so there was this big difference, and Agile wanted to kind of reduce the risk, because otherwise you lose a lot of time and you get into a mode which is very uncertain. But at the end of the period, you really don't know whether it's successful or not successful. And if something goes wrong, you have a huge risk, and you run a risk of putting a lot of money back to the project to get and rectify it. So he said, no, probably we'll do a build small release. We took if review is required, we'll do, but we start releasing in small chunks for the real value to come out. Okay, something similar to what we are talking about here. The traditional project management, we don't have a solution as yet in the beginning. It is still a very fictional project. It's still a very plan driven project. It's a very documented project. I don't have this. I could probably design, I could probably develop, I have the coding, I have the build ready. Till the time you actually get into UAT, you actually have not seen that. And you go back to your organization, you go back to your work, you go back to your world, and you understand that I have lost that much time, but I really don't have the product ready. While in agile process, you really want to, probably plan, design, code, testing at the same time. And at any point of time, 20% of the product should be ready within a sprint. I will talk about the sprint in some time, but end of the whole release cycle, I should have the product, and product which is usable. It doesn't come as a surprise. uh, Stakeholders have collaborated, they have given the feedback, and they're aware. Let's understand agile project development a little more. Okay. uh, when you talk about agile project development, they say it's an alternative to project management, traditional project management. Okay. And so, not that traditional project management has any less value, but yes, not all project needs to be driven the method using the traditional project management. Some projects can be also driven with the help of agile project. By this time, you understood it really focuses on customer satisfaction. Why? Because if you look at this cycle as such, you realize that, rather than I going to all this, probably right here when you have the kickoff meeting and you have this project management plan, you start defining a lot of plan here. That's where stakeholder will probably give the requirement and they disappear till the time they are here. Okay, it will be a long time before we reach to the end of the project. I will be able to assess the real happiness of somebody, a real value of the project, and which is related to satisfaction levels. But out here, since you involve them very regularly, probably they are there throughout the project, because at any point of time, like what I said, there is a small portion which gets released, but at the same time you're already planning for the next project, and it does not come as a surprise for him, for the project to be delivered to him. So there is a lot of engagement that he gets connected to. He gives his regular feedback, he regularly assesses, and that in turn has a lot of value to the way he delivers to the satisfaction level. So there's a lot of emphasis on his happiness. It does deal with good uncertainties and changing situation. Okay, when you talk about uncertainties and changing situation, like the example we gave to Sachin, you make the best phone, but Sachin himself does not know how does the best phone looks like. Probably he has an idea of it, but not a clear understanding of what is the best phone looking like. And to the to the dismay of such, and even the stakeholders who want a best phone has an idea of the product but not really know exactly how does that 20,000 best phone looks like, but they have a fair idea, they have a thought around that. Sachin also has an idea but not really. So assuming that produce a phone and then realize the booting time of the phone is 7 seconds. Oh my god, that's not going to be a seven, because we have other phones which probably can boot at 5 seconds. So is that good or bad? Of course, bad. So we have that option of ensuring that, okay, listen, I need to work very quickly. Can we change the booting seconds to 5, which means we have to change the specification, the build again, and ensure that the product is capable of booting at 5 seconds. And the method allows you to go ahead and do that. So anytime you have uncertainties, you have a changing situations, somebody says, no, I think the phone looks after a first print you realize black color of the phone is too common, I don't like that, maybe red color is good. Okay, well, in traditional project management you would see I would have spent 6 months and realize now this guy wants me to change into red color. Oh, then I probably have to log a change request and I have to go from the beginning and start going through the whole trail of making the phone. Okay. So, okay, somebody says that please zoom the slides. Can people see the slides or no? Yes, no.
Yes, it's visible.
It's visible. Uh,
Yes.
Somebody says zoom. Do let me know.
Yeah. I only said that. Yes, this is the visible, that the PowerPoint. But another one, you the Excel slides, like Agile.
Okay. When you look at
Other
this,
one,
when
that
you look
was
at,
little bit small.
oh, I see. When you look
Yeah,
at
yeah,
this one, is this better to you?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Very good. Then we said no, it is an alternative to project management. It emphasizes on satisfaction level. It gives you a window to accept changes and to deal with those risks. We've been constantly talking about two things. One, iteration. One, is increment. Okay, can somebody explain me the real meaning, or maybe somebody can give me a little understanding of increment? Somebody wants to talk about what do you mean by increment, what do you mean by an iterative process? Anyone wants to give it a try?
Okay, increment is like every 15 days or every sprint, we are seeing new features added to the existing one, and we are seeing the results. Iteration is like this is a continuous process, something like that.
Yeah, Rajesh,
Or
we had a little distortion in the line, but I think I got the
maybe wrong.
essence of your explanation, and it is correct. And maybe adding to what you said, I probably will give you a small example of what iteration and what increment is. Okay, in the same method, and you got that right, Rajesh. But for the class, we will take a small example of what iteration is. Imagine the guy who painted Mona Lisa, isn't it? Who painted Mona Lisa? Anyone wants to give it a try? It's one of those mysterious, famous portraits that we have, isn't it? Yeah. Who portray? Who?
Yeah, is it
Who is that?
Leonardo da Vinci?
Yeah, yeah.
Leonardo da Vinci?
Da Vinci. That is correct. Okay. So yeah, now we're trying to be in the position of Leonardo da Vinci. We said, okay, when he started, look at this. He wanted to draw Mona Lisa. Okay, but he had a very vague idea of how the picture will look like. He started drawing like a gray shade, and then realized, I think I can probably elaborate this a little more. I think the smile is not really perfect. We need to really change the style. And maybe the back end needs to really, really change. And probably I think I need to change the way the hands are placed over each other. Iteration works on that model. When it starts from a small concept, a vague idea, and as in when you start drawing with little more addition, little more with time, little bit of validation, you start adding quality to it. You do have an idea, a vague idea of that product, but not a perfect conceptualization of what the real value will look like. So you start expanding that idea, and then you improvise on that idea. Okay, that's iteration, because every time you want to do things better, you want to reach that level of perfection. And how do you level up perfection? You start with something and then say, okay. In fact, I was working with somebody on resume. He said he builds a resume. I don't know whether it's we got the way we wanted. Probably no. I think we need to add two more things there. Okay, fine. I think we need to add a little bit of resume, experience there. Maybe we need to probably change the career time scale or something like that. So till that time, I get that perfectly from an idea to a real thing that I wanted. It is always in an iteration. You go back to and fro and cycle till the time you get the way you want. Okay, this model does allow you to use iteration extensively. It can start a way, and if you feel no, I don't think even a black color is good, forget it. Change black color, put red color. Okay, great. But now it looks better with the red color. Oh, okay, I think I probably got, by the time I reach Leonardo da Vinci reaches here, he says, oh, perfect. This is exactly the way I would have imagined Mona Lisa to be. And that's iteration. Increment is about adding small piece at a time. I probably start drawing only the head, and then maybe a little hand, and probably the whole picture, and I start adding the whole. Okay, and you realize iterations and increment are a very integral part of agile development. Okay, so you'll always see there are increments that happens, and it is an iteration process because you really don't know this. It's highly complex environment. Okay, and maybe I could show you a little, and then we can come back to the slides. It's a very highly complex environment. because when you start a project, you really don't know whether if you have a vague idea, okay, and you really don't know how does it look like. You see a word called anarchy here. What does anarchy means? Anarchy generally means non-governed, non-controlled. It's not under a regulated environment. I don't know how it looks like. It's very complex. It's uncertain. I don't know. So when you have a project, either you could have a project which is very, very simple or which are highly complicated. And if you look at this graph here, you have an x-axis which talks about the agreement, where you really know what you want from the project, or you really don't know what you want from the project and you are in consensus with it, or it's a very highly complex project. Either you pretty much are very confident of what will be the outcome because it's a simple project we've done in the past, we get that, or you're very far away from certainty. In fact, you could probably reach a phase where it's very undriven, uncontrolled, unorganized. We don't know. So when do we use project? Anything that falls into this bucket, where it's very far off from agreement, it's very uncertain, it probably fits into their anarchy agreement. That's where I say no, we will use agile, because when it's highly complex, highly risk, and we have a very vague idea of what the project is, that's where we actually use agile project management. When it's simple and straightforward, when you know you have a plan, you can drive that forward. Of course, traditional project management works best. Okay. And that is why we said, yeah, it focuses on customer satisfaction. It deals with those risks and uncertainties. It has this increment and an iterative, but there is a continuous delivery, planning, design, which is happening. Now, when you want to succeed your project, you probably have to give a lot of empowerment to your team. Okay, the team which can make decisions. You just cannot not have anybody. But when you have too many people, then also it becomes a problem. There's a saying which says, two is fine, but three is crowd. The moment it becomes three, which means there's too many people. And the more the number of people in the project, there's a lot of chaos which gets added. Okay, so you want to have a very structured team who are motivated, who are skilled, who are empowered to make decisions, who can change the way things which are really important for the project. So you need to give this empowerment to the team. And then we also follow an inspect and adapt approach, which means like the way we looked at the life cycle. We have a place, we build something, we check it's fine, it's great. Then if it's not good, we can make those changes even at the first sprint, make those quick changes and move on to the next. That is what agile project management builds about. Now, there are two triangles.
Raj, one question here.
Right, Rajesh.
Like, what's the ideal team size for agile? Agile model. Like,
Right. We will get to that, but I will just answer that question even now. Okay. So, in general, the ideal project team size is between 3 and 9 people, is when you say you have a good agile team, because it's not too less, but it's not too more also. Now, we will be talking about roles like product owner, and we'll be talking about the role of a Scrum Master or an agile coach. Are contributing technically also, because sometimes you could have people as if they are contributing technically to the project, they are also considered as a part of those 3 to 9 people. Otherwise, they are excluded from the count of 3 to 9 people. That 3 to 9 people are actually a set of people who are really working on the project, which means the set of developer and testers. Otherwise, the max that you can go is 9. The min that you can be is around 3 people. because anything beyond that will get too many people and too many complexities will come with handling it,
Okay.
right? Yes.
Hello,
Now,
Raj. Hello.
yes,
Yeah,
Rasika.
Rasika. Yeah. Can we have one more example for iterative versus incremental?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. We can have many more example of an iteration of an increment. Okay, and let's take that as an example. Something which is very, very common in software management lifecycle, specifically Agile, is the website. Website project means generally nowadays are driven with the help of Agile methodology. Now, I give you a reference. I said, Rasika, can you build a website of, probably a training company, which gives you a lot of options of training services there. Now, that's a classic project of an Agile. You really want to go ahead and build this website where all those people can, come and uh, view this website. Now you want to build this website, a classic good website, which probably give you the list of training services, and people are able to register, people are able to add to the cart, people are able to purchase, can probably log into the website, listen to this training services, but it needs to be best in the market. Oh, okay. So Rasika says, I think I probably will build a website. I think I will probably have one section which really talks about the the services that I really offer, and one section I really talk about trainers. Okay, but I really don't know what do I do with this. Okay, I'm not very sure. Let me also put something on. Let's say I will probably put a little bit of marketing here, and maybe I'll have a little details on trainers who are here, and probably she achieves this one and this one in first sprint, and takes a feedback from stakeholders on something that she's been working on already, because for sprint there are multiple things which are happening at the same time, and people start talking about it. Listen, I think, Rasika, I think you're building a great website, but I don't think you should have marketing here. It is not the way it would make the website look good. I think you probably can have references from students who've gone through the training and they're really good. In fact, that is what is really good. Right? Rasika says, great. I think we just wait this for now. Maybe on the third iteration, I'll put it there. But now what should go here are the references here. So I want to build the best website, Rasika. I'm building it. I know what should actually it looks like, but I'm really confused. But my idea, I'm expanding that idea, taking that feedback, but I'm trying to build that idea and make it more perfect till the time I reach that. You understand? And that's iterative cycle. Where you constantly build, release, take a feedback and say, listen, this is great. Good. If it's not great, what do you want to change? Oh, change it. Okay, fine. And now does it look better? Oh, great. This looks better. Or this doesn't look better still. Can you change something else? There is a lot of constant to and fro which is happening around, and which is, oh, now then I think it looks great. The background color looks good. I think some good feedbacks from the students are there. It will make more sense. I think the services are right there. Probably some tie-ups with universities that you are into. If you have all those information, good look, I think you have the rich page. HTML is outdated. Can we have something very modern, and can we enhance the look and feel? uh, and probably look at the back end. So many things till the time you get it perfect. The whole process as such, where you want to get the best website, you've done this in the past, but you really don't know this one. If you have to make the best and really appealing, and how does it look like? The whole process of inspect and adapt, taking feedback, small thought and idea, expanding till the time you reach the level of perfection with a series of feedback that you have within the stakeholders. That is exactly the whole process of iteration. That is an iterative process. Hmm?
Okay. And incrementally, we can add something in, while doing any project or designing anything.
Of course. like what we said, the entire agile method, and we will walk you through on one of the project methodology, which is the Scrum. You will get to know more, where like the way it was a constant change here. You said you didn't want to have your idea was to have a marketing blog there on the top. The stakeholder says marketing blog doesn't work. Let's have the references of students there. So in a classic project management style, you would have probably logged a change request, gone back the whole design planning code, and then build it, go to the UAT and say great. Or within the sprint itself, you probably take a feedback in agile methodology and make those changes immediately. So it allows you to change very constantly till the time you get the whole concept, the whole product, whole deliverable perfectly the way you want it. So it is very adaptive to changing circumstances, to risk, to uncertainties.
Okay.
Kapil, are you okay so far?
I got this.
Right. Wonderful. Then we said, no, there are two triangles. One, if you look at this, it really talks about waterfall plan driven method. Then there is a reverse triangle, which is where agile methodology comes into picture. Now, what does it mean? It means most times in a classic project management style, you will always have the scope fixed. You want to deliver this. Okay. And probably because we do have change management there, you could have a liberty of time and cost to achieve this. You can start off with an initial scope. You want to definitely deliver within the time and cost that you agreed on the first baseline, and you want to deliver that. But this will always remain fixed. This can change based on the time, because as long as you didn't reach that, your project is still not completed. You have a little flexibility by invoking change management to reach the scope that you wanted. Okay, that's a classic project management triangle. But on agile project management, the triangle reverses. You cannot have more time. Time is very, very important to us. So that is fixed. That cannot change much. But with regards to scope, like the way we took an example of the website, if you feel the red color on the background is not good, can we change it? Yes, we can change it. But we don't have the liberty of completing the sprints and the release cycle beyond the expected duration that we've agreed on. So time will probably remain fixed, cost will probably remain fixed, but scope can change. Scope can definitely change. Okay. And that's the liberty that you really have here in agile project management, where scope can vary, but time will remain fixed. In traditional project management, scope is fixed, it's rigid, it's plan driven. It's if you want to change the scope, you probably have to invoke your change management process. Otherwise, you cannot add anything without a change management process. Right. Let's look at some other benefits of projects. By this time, you have a fair understanding of agile, and by this time that yes, because of the methodology that we look at, the biggest benefit that you really get from all this is there is a big improvement in product quality, because you have small little chunks. It's really visible to the person at every milestone, and because of that, the quality is great and people are really happy. So you see there's always this quality which gets a lot of it improves the quality, uh, and the satisfaction level of customers are really, really high. The other big benefits that you get is there is a lot of improved teamwork, there is visibility, there are places where you can get stuck, roadblocks, but at the same time you're able to come out of the situation faster. Right. We did talk about this, and we also know now by this time when do we use an agile project. We did speak about that. We speak when it's uncertain, when it's probably close to anarchy, when you really focus on the quality of the product, when you have restriction of time, when you really want to have a high satisfaction level. You probably want to release it in small increment and iterative. That's the time when you really use it. Right. So using that methodology, you know that when we spoke about project management, we said it probably started, the PMI started having in the year 1969, and the real framework actually got into the world around 80s. 80s is when you see the first edition of PMBOK released. And all this while we were doing the traditional project management for a long time. Around 1980s and 1990s, where people started talking about agile, because I think traditional project management was great, but it was not applicable to all kind of projects. So then they thought, I think there needs to be a small little framework, a different framework which needs to come for the projects which are complex, uncertain, moves faster, and agile came into the picture. So the entire agile methodology starts with the mindset. And why do we say a mindset? Because not many people are adaptive to change. When you want to drive your agile project, it starts in the mind, because it will move at a faster pace. You need to have skilled people. There will be a lot of complex uncertainties. If you don't have the knack of it, if you don't understand the nuances of it, you will not be able to drive agile project. So it starts with the mind. If you have the mindset of it, then it is all binded by values and principles. You need to stick on to these values and principles and drive your project. But otherwise, there's no way you should go ahead with the agile project. So it starts with the mind. And if you remember on day 2, we did speak about values of agile. These are four agile values. Okay. On the left side, which is on green, are the real agile values. And there is a comparison against the traditional project management, which is available on pink. And in no way agile discriminates the other, but it says the real value will only come if I start putting a lot of attention to the things that I've listed on the left. Like, for example, it says agile values or agile projects are always around individuals and interactions and not process and tools. You look at classical project management, you need to have probably a lot of templates and forms and all those organization checklists. You probably need to comply with few things, standards, ISO references, audit references, and then it's all fine. And probably stakeholder is there in the beginning, but really not at the end. But here, while we know that some level of processes and tools are required, agile also has processes, agile also has tools, but that's required very bare minimum. We don't require too many processes. The entire emphasis is on individuals and interaction. Second one, really talk about working software. The real measure of an agile project success is that to be able to see a working software. Unless and until I see that, seeing is believing. So if I don't see that, I don't know whether what we are talking about is successful or not. So it believes that we'll be able to roll out a working software, even in small little piece, but it still needs to be visible to me, and I should be able to see that rather having raw comprehensive document. Customer collaboration is too important. Okay, so you are dealing with this guy probably almost every day. and they are pretty much on the thick of the things. They're aware because lots happening around them. You are taking their constant feedback, and so they are quite involved in the thick of things. On contrary to contract negotiation, where we meet them in the beginning, we finalize the requirement, we sign off, scope gets finalized, the requirement gets finalized, and if you want to change that, there is a change management. The last one talks about how well we can respond to change, and we are very adaptive to it rather than having a plan and running behind that. Now, it does not mean that we don't have planning. And Agile, we do have planning and Agile related process frameworks, but a lot of attention and a lot of flexibility is given to any kind of change that you like to see. These are 4 important values: individual interaction, working software, customer collaboration, responding to change. If you have those values, if you have the mindset, and if you understand this 12 principles, that's where you get started with Agile. Let's go through these principles. The first one really talks about that customers are really happier when they start seeing those products at regular interval. And that is the actual measure of their satisfaction. Not that they need to really wait till the time you reach a UAT, user acceptance test, and then give their feedback. They'll be really happy when you'll be able to go ahead and do a small product demo and show that, okay, this is exactly what you wanted. And if you can show that at regular intervals, that is what really makes them happy and satisfied. The second principle talks about developments are really, it's a very flexible environment. Even on the last day of release planning, you could probably go ahead and incorporate something and it's still fine. If you feel something is not right, the entire framework allows you that option to raise it, incorporate it, and take forward. So change is an imperative part. This model allows you to change a lot of things even at the end. Third one, it talks about delivering a software from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. If you look at the entire predictive life cycle, there's no timeline defined. It could range from anywhere from 6 months, probably can go years. There are projects which go for years. When we talk about those vaccines today the whole world, we understand, is under the COVID lockdown situation. And the first question which came into the world is that, I think it's a very troubled time for the world, and we need to really go ahead and develop vaccine as soon as possible. Vaccine is an example of a classic project. It's temporary, it is result driven, it's change driven, it has a value, it has a start, it has an end. You need to get that. So that's a classic project. People said, okay, fine, I think we need to get this vaccine released as soon as possible. When they went back in the past and say, let's look back to the kind of releases that we've had on vaccines, what's the fastest we've actually gone ahead and released a vaccine? And to their surprise, the fastest vaccine that was released ever in the world was 4 years of time, which was for the mumps vaccine. And then on the other side, you do have a vaccine that you want to create for AIDS. It's been going on for 50 years and we still don't have a vaccine. Now, can you imagine if somebody does not see a solution for 4 years, of course, his satisfaction level will go and take a hit. And this is a classic situation which people want to avoid. Okay, we don't want to be a situation where you take a long time before. So Agile recommends that you need to be able to deliver something between a couple of weeks to a couple of months, so that people are quite involved, their confidence level are high, they're engaged, they understand, and you're able to deliver. Which is in continuation, that you need to be collaborating with those stakeholders on a regular basis, the technical team on a regular basis, and they're aligned to what business and technical needs are, so that you can make better decisions. Okay, agile projects is always around motivated individuals, motivated team, because you understand you are going to get a project which is highly complex, and if you don't have highly skilled, self-motivated people, you will not get the desired results. In general, when you go back to work and when you realize what makes you happy, what is job satisfaction, the day you realize that the work that you are doing is adding value to the organization, is going to benefit the organization, that fact, that feeling of that itself makes you happy. So when you realize that, when you have a value added job, when you have a skilled people, skilled, and the job that you're doing is really important, it's going to add value, that itself will add a lot of moral boost to the team. And agile moves around that paradigm. It completely endorses face-to-face interaction. Well, I can talk quite a lot, but sometimes the way you talk, your body language, when you are able to see, there are so many of direct communication, but there are so many of those indirect communication which passes a lot of message. And so when people are there face to face, it probably puts the right communication in perspective, which means the right information is sent to the right person to the right frequency at the right time in the right way. So face to face is very encouraged, and in this model, the eventual outcome of the product or the model is the product. If the product fails, your project is failed. The last one in this project really talks about sustainable development. And it talks about sustainable development, which means we are talking about a constant pace, like the way you run marathon. You realize when people are new to marathon, they will run very, 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 very fast. After 10 minutes, they're exhausted and they probably give up. This is what happens to probably, Mumbai Marathon. You see a million people who come together. After 10 minutes, you realize just some thousands left. Rest all have disappeared. Purely because the way you run marathon, you need to have a constant pace so that you conserve your energy. You're running for a race which is difficult. You probably run at the constant pace, and then you maintain that pace till the time you reach the goal. There's a lot of attention given to the design, and a lot of importance given to quality, because if you have the right quality techniques in place, if you have the right quality design in place, your chances of success enhance dramatically. Your chances are very high that you will be successful. So a lot of emphasis given to design and quality aspects. The next one, it says simplicity, maximizing the work not done is an essential element. Now, you need to keep it very, very simple. At the same time, you need to understand your priorities very, very well. Whatever is really, really important needs to go first. Whatever is not really important needs to be either removed or probably will go much later. And that's very important in the world of agile project management, where you give a lot of attention to the work which can go fast. And prioritization is important based on customers' requirement and project success. We did speak about the team, which needs to be, talking to itself. They communicate well, they share ideas, they deliver quality product, they need to build a good architecture. And the last one really talks about the fact that there has to be enough mechanism within the project governance and framework to identify what did we do good and to identify areas of improvement and do better from them. This were the 12th principle. Now, coming back to that slide, that if you have the right mindset, and now then you understand those 4 values, which moves around individual and interaction, working software, customer collaboration, and responding to change, and those 12 principles that we went around right now. If you have all this and an environment which kind of really fosters agile behavior. An environment that meets a complex project needs to be driven faster. There's a lot of expectation around that. When you have all this, that's when you drive agile project. Otherwise, you don't go ahead with the agile project. Okay. If you understand all this, that's where you get start with an agile project. Now, agile is just about those values, it's just about those principles, it's about those mindset. But there are many frameworks which kind of really takes you to agile project management. There is not only one, there are many frameworks which helps you. Agile says you need to have those values, you need to have this mindset, you need to have understand those 12 principles. If you understand all this, it's complex, it's risk, it's uncertain, you want to make people happy, you could definitely go ahead with the agile project. But is agile the name of the framework? No. There are many frameworks which are there around agile, and these are the methodology which is where agile frameworks move around. Today I will talk about Scrum, and we will talk about that in some time. But 56% of the project in today's world is driven with the help of Scrum methodology. Okay, and all those model that you see there, you understand there was a Scrum Alliance which was formed, where people came in from different group and understood that maybe project needs to be driven differently. That is where Scrum Alliance came into picture, and using that values, using the principles, they said I have different ways of driving project, and I probably can drive projects using all this methodology. You have a Scrum, you have an extreme programming, you have a lean, you have a Kanban methodology, you have a crystal methodology, you have a dynamic system development methodology, you have feature driven. Now, as in when we go back to our regional project management, I will find a small little time where I can talk about all the others, but today I will talk about Scrum. And if you understand Scrum, like what I said, 56% of the project are using Scrum methodology. There is also a 14% which uses a hybrid methodology. Everybody uses a little bit of Scrum, a little bit of Kanban, a little bit of lean, mix of all. Or there is something called Scrum Ban. Scrum methodology is a standard methodology in itself, but there is also a Kanban methodology. When you mix Scrum and Kanban together, it becomes a Scrum Ban. So in general, if you see most projects, around 70% of the project is driven using only Scrum. If you understand Scrum, you probably understand Agile methodology. So today we will get started with Scrum, and let's look at little background, a historical perspective of how Scrum started. Okay, and if you want to define, if you want to, probably have a one line which describes Scrum very well, you can probably look at the definition which Mike Kahn has given in the beginning. Mike Kahn really talks about a framework. Agile is a framework that allows us to focus on delivering the highest business value in the shortest time. That sums up the framework. That really sums up the framework of Scrum. It started with those Japanese guy in 1986. They coined this when they were really working on a new product development game. And in 1993, you have this couple of guys, Jeff Sutherland and Ken Schwaber. They had written a white paper on this model. In 2002, when you have the Scrum Alliance, which was formed. Okay, and Kapil must be asking, what is this PSM and CSM? Sometimes you hear Certified Scrum Master, and sometimes you hear Product Scrum Master. It's just that there are two websites. One is scrumalliance.org and one is scrum.org. There are two different companies probably working on the same model. So model doesn't change. It's just that there are from different companies following the same framework. You can be a CSM or a PSM, but the framework remains the same. And that is where in 2002 the Scrum Alliance formed. It is probably one of the fastest growing, predominantly on software development projects, but used extensively by companies today. Today you see Google is using it, Infosys. In fact, most technology company today are using in bits and pieces the Scrum methodology. So if you understand Scrum, you kind of understand the larger way agile projects are driven. And when you talk about the Scrum project, it will move onto this three key tenets and 11 techniques. And when you say tenants, we need to deliver early, and quite often, like the way we've been saying, increment delivery, iterative delivery, we need to give a team a lot of power, and we need to inspect and put a lot of emphasis on quality. It is time boxed. When you say time box, there are many ceremonies which are there. We'll talk about the ceremonies in some time, but there are 5 other ceremonies. 3 artifact are generally like a document, a product backlog, and the release backlog, all those artifacts. And there are 3 rules like the product owner, Scrum Master, the team. It all moves around this. And a picture around this. This picture is the most important picture to understand Agile. And I'll probably start putting this as a picture, which is the most important part in understanding framework. Right. If you understand this framework, and for reference, you need to understand Scrum is a very easy framework. It is easy as a framework. It moves around those 5 ceremonies, 3 artifacts, and probably get the project that you want. But it starts with this. Actually, it talks about the entire life cycle, but we will start with the team first. Who are the people who are a part of the Scrum team? In general, there are 3 roles, like what I said. There's a Scrum Master, there's a product owner, and there's a team. And this team will comprise of a group which are either the quality analyst or the testing team or the developers. It moves around anywhere between 3 to 9 people as a team. And if you have a product owner and Scrum Master also taking multiple shades, technically contributing to it, they're a part of those 3 to 9 people. If they are not doing anything and very confined to the role which has been given to Scrum Master and product owner, then they're not counted with those 3 to 9 people. Let's try to understand this guy a little more. He is a very important person. It's the product owner. In a nutshell, he's also called CEO of the product. He is the guy who understands the product. In classical traditional project management, most projects also will have technical lead. You could also have references around this guy. He is the CEO of the product. He is the technical lead of the product. He understands the product more than anybody else in the project. Let's try to understand what this guy does. What are the key roles that this guy executes? And we'll try to understand the work that has been done by product owner. Okay. We can go back to our mobile example, and assuming that you are trying to build the best mobile under 20,000 rupees. Okay. And if you want to build this mobile, what is this product owner going to be important on this building this project that you want to build under the 20,000? By the way, the definition of project doesn't change. The definition of sponsor doesn't change. The definition of stakeholders that we spoke about last time, that doesn't change either. Those are standard terminology which are same irrespective of what environment we're talking about. But we're talking about a mobile under 20,000 rupees. You want this guy to is the product owner. Let's try to understand. And I said in a nutshell, he's the CEO of the product. He is the technical lead of the project. He actually defined the feature of the product. If I want to build this mobile, I want to define what should be part of that mobile, whether it's good camera, good language, good software, good application, good hardware, good specs, good look and feel. He is the guy who really defines the product, the features of the product. He is the guy who is constantly working the stakeholders. In classic project management, you see project manager goes to the stakeholder, talks to them, do a workshop, collects the feedback, collects the requirement. He does. But in Scrum is the uh, product owner who really defines the feature of the product, constantly working with the stakeholders on requirement. He is the guy which prioritize the features. Today, I know I will be releasing out this project. Which should go first and which should go second? He is the guy who prioritizes the features. In fact, the whole work of a project you probably will have an artifact. You remember that we spoke about ceremonies, and artifact, and all those things. This is generally called the product backlog. When you say product backlog, this has all the features. This is all the requirements. Everything that you require to build this mobile, which is into the cutting-edge technology that you want to bring into the market under the 20,000 rupees. All what you want to build to get this mobile phone, everything that should be a part of this product backlog. This is called a product backlog. It will have the list of all the features and the requirement. Okay, it just took us back to, okay. So the owner of this product backlog, and like what I said, product backlog is the list of entire requirement, all requirements are a part of this product backlog. Okay, and when you talk about requirements, which can be part of this product backlog, a very large requirement, it's called epic. Epic generally talks about a very large requirement. But when you want to break this epic into smaller features, then those are called story. Sometimes you will see user story also, you will say. We will take an example of an epic and use a story in some time. You could have a big epic, for example, you're building a website. On that website, you could have a story. Say that you should be able to have a user who should be able to log in. That's a user story. You should be able to have a user who should be able to register himself. You should be able to have a module. We should be able to add a product to the cart, or process the transaction. All these are user stories. You can have many user stories to achieve this whole epic, which you said no, you want to build the website. And to build that website, you want to ensure that people are able to register the user story, or they are able to add to a cart, or people are able to apply for refund, or people are able to check order status, and on and on and on. But at the end of the day, you are able to trying to build a website, which is a very, very large requirement, can be broken down into small stories, which are very, very module objective. And to get this story, you will have many tasks. Okay, and tasks which are generally done by the developer and quality assurance generally to achieve this story. And you could have many tasks which should be there as a part of it. There can be many tasks which should be part of it. Okay, it could have many tasks around this. Okay, all these three things, whether it's epic, whether it's user story, and whether it is task, because beyond that you will also have something called theme, which is at portfolio level, and that can trigger many epics, because start with the big broad idea on the top, assuming that you want to go into a transformation project, you want to see how organization gets into transformation project. One was ensuring that your website will get enhanced and built forward. All those will generally be part of it. Now all those epic user stories and tasks are generally part of this product backlog. So when you talk about all requirements. We are talking about list of epic, list of stories, list of tasks, everything as a part of my product backlog. It should have the features, it will have the requirements, like the way said, which means it will have epics, story, task. Why? Because we want to build this mobile phone. We want to ensure whatever requirement should be a part of all this requirement. This is in nutshell, like when we say there are three key artifacts in this methodology. One of them is product backlog. Other one is release backlog. Then we will talk about those increments. But these are three artifacts, and we'll be looking at the ceremonies one by one. But for now, we are going slowly sinking into the subject, and I'm trying to understand what is this guy doing, because this guy actually defines the product, and he is the guy who works with stakeholders on all the requirements. He prioritizes all the features. Everything that I want to build in is a part of this product backlog. This guy is the owner of the product backlog. Okay. What else this guy does? He also technically, he will either accept or reject the results. Okay, so this is what the key functionality of this product backlog. He owns this product. He will do backlog find, he prioritize, deals with stakeholders, own this, talks about the features. He is the CEO of the product. He is the technical lead. He understands this product. He knows more than anything else and anybody else. This is what the product owner does. Then we said, no, there is also a Scrum Master. What is this guy going to do? Scrum Master is the guy who is the process guy, who works a lot on the process. And let's look some of his responsibility. We understood now the product owner. We will come back to this guy, but we want to understand what and who does what in this work. Yeah, this picture kind of defines it quite well. This is the product owner who probably wants to build a mobile phone under 20,000. He knows what is desired. Why is it desired? He owns the product guy. He is the guy with the most brains. He exactly knows what is wanted. He is talking to the stakeholders and how it needs to be done. Also, the team internally is talking to this guy in terms of work is concerned. But there is also this guy called Scrum Master. Now, what is the Scrum Master doing? He is the process-oriented guy. In terms of somebody who needs training, this guy will deliver the training. If somebody doesn't understand the methodology, the framework, this guy does the training. He is the servant leader. What does a servant do? It means that today, if I need something, who can help me out? It is this guy. He is a servant guy. Okay. In Scrum methodology, you don't have a team who reports to anybody. There's no reporting hierarchy. Team is a self-organized, self-motivated people who are managed by themselves. They don't manage anybody. Nobody manages this team. So Scrum Master does not have a reporting hierarchy, which is defined by the team who goes to. But this guy is the guy who's a servant leadership. For example, if you don't have the test environment ready, who should be really bothered about this? This guy. This guy will remove the impediments, the roadblocks, any struggles that you have around the project. This is the guy. Anybody who doesn't understand Scrum as a process, this guy will take care. He is the servant leader. He is the guy who will probably arrange the meeting room. He probably get into in a situation, will probably manage and do a little bit of work on this Jira tool. This is the guy who does a lot of work around. This is the guy who really owns the product. And then you have the team of a developer and a tester. And what is this guy going to do? We understood. We understood Scrum Master is the process guy. He is the guy who is the and he is the person who will remove roadblocks. And then you have a set of team. And like what I said, you will have a team, which is a set of quality assurance, or you will have the developers who will be a part of this group. And what are the kind of work that this guy will do? Probably when you look at the work that needs to be done by, by classic work that needs to be done by developers will be a part of this work. For example, something like writing a code, designing a code, ensuring test environment is ready, or the production environment is ready, the build is ready, whether codes are commented, and so on and on and on. Who does all this? It's all done by the developer and the coders. And all your tasks probably will move around that. All your tasks will probably move around. This is the set of tasks that you can have. You can also have the UAT, you can have the T, you could have the performance testing or integration testing. Everything can be a part of that work. So we understood product backlog, one of the artifact. We understood what can be a part of this. We understood an epic story and a task. We understood who are a part of this team. We understood what these guys do. We also look at some of the tasks which are done by the quality analyst or the testing team or the developers team. The list is endless. They will have to ensure that build is ready. They will have to ensure user story is defined. They need to ensure there's an acceptance criteria which needs to be defined. Most importantly, there are two important steps which are very, very important. One is definition of ready. Okay. And when you say definition of ready, which means I am actually ready to go ahead and ensure the work that I had given to probably the developer to ensure that user story is clear, user story is testable, user story is feasible, acceptance criteria is defined, and so on, which really talks about the work that needs to be delivered. Once you have the definition of ready, which means we are really ready to go ahead and start testing and ensuring that if you have the definition of ready, finally it will all boil down to those epic stories and tasks that you want to do, but you want to ensure in using those tasks, you want to ensure the story is ready, testable, feasible, it's defined, the code is produced, it is about to we are ready to go ahead and which means my testing can commence. And then we have DOD, definition of done. So there's a part of it which talks about when are we ready to work, when we have the story which is clear, testable, feasible, defined, code is produced, commented, the dependencies are identified, the Scrum team accepts the user story. You have very clear cut definition of what needs to be ready before we actually go ahead and start testing on it. And there needs to be a clear cut idea of definition of done, which means when do we really say it's complete? When do we really say that we are all ready to go ahead and give our feedback that it's completed? When code is produced, when we have code is commented, when you have peer review done. Peer review is nothing but a developer and a quality assurance guy, a tester, can probably do a quick recheck of what has been done and the build is ready without errors. The acceptance criteria is met. And on and on. So primarily, I want to ensure that my build is ready, my unit test is written and it's passing, my UAT is passed, my SIT is passed, my build is ready, the documentation is ready. And that's where we say the work is really done. So in a nutshell, so far we understood what does this product owner does, what does its Scrum Master does, who are a part of this team. These are the people who will be within this 3 to 9 bucket that we are talking about. Who owns this? What is an epic? What is a story? What is a task? And when you talk about an epic and story, we really took an example of what is an example that we can build. We took a website reference. We are also taking an example reference of a mobile page. And then there are different tasks that are executed by developers and testers. All those will be part of my task. And for the work to ensure, once we understand the product, can somebody put that on mute? Who is this? Yeah. No, somebody's mute button has to be on. Is it Snehal? Can you put your computer on mute? Yeah. Snehal, if you're listening to me, if you could put your computer on mute.
आपण ज्या व्यक्तीसोबत बोलत आहात त्या व्यक्तीने आपला कॉल होल्डवर ठेवला आहे. कृपया लाईनवर राहा. The person you are speaking with has put your call on hold. Please stay on the line. आप जिस व्यक्ति से बात कर रहे हैं उसने आपकी कॉल को होल्ड पे रखा है। कृपया लाइन पर बने रहें।
Hey Snail. Yeah, I think it's better now. Anyway, so now we were trying to understand the entire Scrum framework. We understood the whole method of Agile. We understood there are many frameworks which could be used to deliver projects on Agile, and the most important one, Scrum. But we are trying to understand these people. Who is this product owner? Who is this Scrum Master? Who are those team? What are the kind of tasks they do? What is a part of the product backlog? What is an epic? What is a user story? What is a task? What are the kind of tasks you? When do you say the work is ready for work? What is the definition of ready? When do you really say work is accepted and it's done? What is the definition of done? So you understood all this. Now, once you have an understanding of the team and product, the first ceremony that you see here is the sprint planning meeting. And like what I said, it is a time box method. I can probably show this to all of you guys. These are the 5 ceremonies that we are talking about. Sprint planning, sprint review, retrospective, and daily scrum. The first process is a sprint planning. If you have a sprint of which is more than 4 weeks, that sprint planning exercise should take a complete day. But if you have a sprint of 2 weeks, then probably half day is enough for a sprint planning exercise. If you have a sprint which is just 1 week, it is you just need to have a sprint planning exercise of 2 hours. So that's why we say most of the activities that you see there, most of the ceremonies that you see there are time bound based on the time scale of the project. Let's talk about this sprint a little more, and so that we can understand this a little more here. Okay, we are talking about the Scrum framework, and we are talking about the first ceremony, the sprint planning. Okay, so we have a sprint planning as the first ceremony. What really happens on this? It is 9:30. It is the first ceremony that we have as a part of the Scrum framework. So when you look at sprint planning, what really happens there? End of the day, you are committed to deliver a mobile phone. All the requirements are part of the product backlog. And then with that set of people, you identify a team, you identify a product owner, you identify a Scrum Master, you start that project. Now, most time, the projects are run with sprints. Sprints are generally duration, which is between 1 week to 4 weeks, maximum sprint cycle. Before that, what are you talking on the sprint planning exercise? On that sprint planning exercise, you say there are some 1,000 requirements, 1,000 mix of features and tasks and stories are part of the product backlog. I need to deliver this. So first, I need to really work on the release cycle. I said all my sprint are probably going to be 2 weeks time, and I'll probably take around 7 sprint to complete the entire product backlog of 1,000 requirement that you see. 1,000 requirement means we are talking about multiple epics, multiple user stories, multiple tasks that needs to be delivered there. And so we understood that if I have to achieve this 1,000 requirements that are part of the product like the backlog, I need to complete this in 7 sprint. And with the help of product owner, we also have identified things which can go first, which can go second, which can do third. The product owner is actually prioritizing what can go first, what can go second, what can go in the third sprint, what can go in the fourth sprint. And the delivery cycle, like what I said, is between 1 to 4 weeks. And so every sprint can be within that 1 to 4 weeks based on your project requirement. So you understand out of this 1,000 requirement, there are some 100 requirement which can go as a part of the sprint 1, maybe 250 as a requirement which is a part of sprint 2, and 3 and 4 and a 5 and a 6 and all. So this is exactly what I'm discussing, that I need to achieve this 1,000 requirement, which is a part of my product backlog. I will run a sprint, which is, let's say, 3 weeks of time, and I will complete this in 7 sprints. And these are some things which will go on the first sprint. These are something which will go on the second sprint. These are something which will go on the third sprint, and a fourth and a fifth and a sixth. All this is happening as a part of my sprint planning exercise. Unlike what we said, it is a time box event. If you are having a sprint which is more than 4 weeks or around 4 weeks, then probably the sprint planning exercise can last a day. But if you have a sprint which is just within 1 week, you don't have to spend a day there. Even 2 hours is enough. So it all starts with the sprint planning exercise. You have an understanding of release cycle, number of sprints, and priorities. And you by this time have an understanding of the product backlog also. So once everything is happening on sprint planning, okay, did I see a chat? Okay. So we are talking about the first ceremony, which is a sprint planning exercise, which happens as a part of my initial process where product owner understands the product backlog. We have a team which is ready. We have definition of done, definition of ready. Everything gets defined as a part of once the product backlog. And now then, you are going to go ahead and run that sprint. This sprint planning will get divided into sprint backlog. Like what we say here, we said there are 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 sprint that will be required. Now then I understand how do I want to achieve this 1,000. I have a full understanding of the entire release cycle. And this is time box. If it's something which is just most times it's actually a 4-hour session that gets conducted based on the number of sprints number of weeks that you have within the sprint. Once that is done, then you probably go very, very specific on sprint backlog, because you say on the first sprint I'm going to deliver this 100 items, and on this sprint backlog you have a product owner, you have the team, you have the Scrum Master, and you've identified there are 100 products that needs to go live as a part of my first increment, first release on the first sprint. You say first sprint is 3 weeks. You say you want to cover 100 requirements. Or in a nutshell, you want to cover 100 story points within a part of the sprint backlog. And everything starts happening around that. Once you have an understanding of that, Then you start running the sprint. You know that and you start working on the sprint backlog, which is the second artifact, and you want to complete this as a part of those first sprint that you will run. You've identified that every sprint will be 3 weeks. You are trying to get 100 requirement which needs to be uh, completed within the first sprint, which is a 3-week size. You agreed on a smaller backlog because then you said, okay, there was a big backlog which has all the features which is there. It is the product backlog, and you've divided this into 7 sprint, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and every sprint also will have a small backlog. You said in here you will cover 100 requirement. Now you need to, after the sprint planning exercise, you probably will have a sprint planning on identifying the task that we will execute, the user stories that I will execute. I need to have an understanding of estimation. Okay, the idea of segregating that 100 user stories will go here, 250 user stories will go here, 150 is going here, is all on the concept of estimation. I will talk about the estimation in some time, but for now you understand that I have agreed that there are 1,000 requirements that I need to go through, and within that first sprint I'm running, I'm working on a sprint backlog, and I've agreed with the team. The team decides the priority of the release with the help of the product managers. Of course, product manager drives it, but they will come back with their own recommendations. They are self-driven. Nobody, they don't report to anybody. Highly skilled, and that's exactly what happens in a sprint backlog. And they start working on that. And they start working on the first sprint. And you said that first sprint will last for 3 weeks size. Then there is a ceremony which is called really stand up meeting. So from the release cycle to the sprint backlog, and the team start running the 3-week sprint, they are trying to deliver that 100 requirement. Every day there is a 15-minute stand-up meeting which happens, and on the stand-up meeting you really decide and discuss what went well, what is the plan for today, what is the plan for tomorrow. Or in fact, if you want to be very specific, what did you do yesterday, what is the plan for today, and what is the plan for tomorrow. This is a stand-up meeting between only team members, and they really want to go ahead and check what happened yesterday, what is the plan for today, what is the plan for tomorrow. They also have a tool to just have an understanding of how is the progress progressing. So they'll have a burn down chart just to give an idea of how the project is progressing. Okay, let's look at, we said it's all about 5 ceremonies, 3 artifact, and some tools. Out of that, one of the most important tool are a burn down. Okay, burn down chart gives an idea of how are we progressing with the project. And let's take an example just to understand this a little more, because you want to understand what is this burn down chart, because this is one important tool. It gives you an idea of how is the project progressing, and it's important to know that how we are doing it. Let's take an example of a burn down chart, and I'll probably draw this in Excel file just for your understanding. We'll take an example of a sprint. We'll take an example of a sprint which needs to be completed in 7 days time. Okay, so we are looking at a sprint, an example of a sprint which is going to be completed in 7 days time period. We are looking at a different task, and I'm just taking the reference of the same task, which could be a part of what we need to do on those 7 days of period. So we are looking at different tasks. We know I have defined hours to go ahead and complete all those tasks. So I also have tasks. I also have total hours that I have to complete this task. For example, I have 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 5, 7. Randomly, I put some hours, and I know I need to complete this. Okay. If I want to simplify this exercise, I'll probably not 7 days. I'll probably I want to give you a day-wise understanding of how much work that we are doing. So we will have day-wise progress of how many hours consumed on day 5 or day 7 to be precise. Day 6, day 5, day 4, day 3, 2, day 1. Okay. We are just taking an example of a sprint, a 7-day sprint. We are looking at 7 tasks that we will execute. We are looking also at some total hours that we have really estimated as a part of the project. So we want to know how many hours we will be we look at actual, remaining, and estimated total hours. Right. So we are talking about one sprint which we want to complete in 7 days period. Okay. And we have taken a list of total 7 tasks which needs to be completed in 49 hours. Okay. So we said we want to complete a sprint in 7 days period, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I want to complete this 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, around 49 hours. I need to be able to consume. This is the total story points that I want to complete. I have 7 days to complete the project. I want to understand every day. We have agreed to complete the sprint in 49 hours. We've got 7 days to do. I want to understand a progress of the work every single day, because on a stand-up meeting, I have a one common tool, which is the burn down chart. I'm trying to understand with the help of a tool called burn down chart. Using that as a reference, we've just taken an example of 7 tasks that I'm completing within 7 days. This is the actual hours that I want to complete it. Okay. And I'm just taking an example of assuming that today on day 1 or on the 7th day, because we are going back, burn down is always about 7 days you run back to complete it. On day 1 out of 4 I completed 2, out of 6 I completed 3, out of 8 I completed 4, out of this I've completed 5. I've completed the 5 hours here again. Out of this 2, out of 7 I've completed 2 again. Okay, so when I started this project I had 49 hours that I want to complete. On day 1 I have worked this many hours, which means out of 49 I consumed 23 hours. So I started with 49 hours is my total quota of time duration that I have for the project. On day 1 I consumed 23 hours on day 1. Logically, when I start this project, I have 49 hours and I expect to complete this project within 49 hours. If I want to place this project really well, which means every day logically I should work for 7 hours every day, then I'll probably get there. Which means on day 7, I should have 42 hours. By the time I actually reach day 1, I should be left with 0, because I should probably have 7 hours that I will probably, if I have to maintain a constant velocity, I will consume 42 hours, 7 gone from the next day, another 7 gone from the next day, another 7. By the end of the day 1, I should be left with 0 hours. But looks like on day 1, I consumed 23 hours, which means from the 49 hours, I actually lost 26 hours. On the next day, I actually took another 1 hours, another 1, maybe another 2, another 2, another 3 hours. I'm just randomly picking up some numbers here. So on day 2, I consumed 11 hours. So first day, I worked really hard. I completed 23 hours. On the next day, I completed 11 hours, which means overall, from the entire quota of 49 hours, I finished 26 hours on day 1. And then on day 2, I have also finished from the 26. I could finish another 11 hours. So I'm left with 15 hours only. Day 3 and day 4 is we didn't work for some reason. Maybe there was a earthquakes, nothing happened. Nobody was doing anything. We had no choice but to stop that work, which means my 15 continues every day because I did not work. So I am still left with this 15 hours. And on the last day, I actually wanted to ensure that I utilize the quota of duration that I have, and I completed all the work. So on the last day, I ended up doing another 15 hours of work on day, and we finished the work. So this was a small work, a small chart that we are trying to plot using the data that we have for 7 days. We are looking at an example of a sprint, and here it looks at the task that we have. We are looking to involve and complete this in 49 hours. We've taken a day-wise breakup, how it is going, how are we working on day 1, how are we working on day 2. There are many days which did not work, but eventually, yes, we completed the sprint. So we have a logical state where actually every day if you spend 7 hours, because your quota is around 49 hours, so every day you should be able to spend only 7 hours. But logically, it looks like that day 1 you worked so much, day 2 you worked little lesser. There are some days where you've not really worked. Last day, yes, you've actually managed to complete the work. Using this two information, one is estimated total hours and the actual hours, you want to insert a chart. And that chart is called a burn down chart. This is an example of a burn down chart. We just wanted to practically do this in front of you to understand how are we progressing every day. So this is the chart that the team looks in every day, saying that, okay, fine, I think on day one, oh, it looks like we are working very, very hard, and we wanted to ensure that we complete this in 49 hours. We did quite well. There are days we did not do anything, but there are also days where we finish this within a period of time. So it will give you a logical progression of how your project has gone within those 7 days period. And this is an example of burn down chart. This is the most important chart. There are others which are burn up chart, which talks about the entire work against the duration remaining, and it can move with a linear progression. But what generally is happening, coming back to our framework that we are trying to understand, is that we start planning this exercise, which is where you plan the release cycle. You understand how much sprint is there, how much work is there. I will talk about the estimation in a while. Then you say, no, we will probably cover this in 7 sprint, but the one sprint will be 3 weeks. We identify that we'll complete 100 story point per sprint. We started working on the sprint backlog, which is a smaller backlog taken out from the product backlog. And then on daily basis, we meet the team, we understand what went well yesterday, what went well today, and what is the plan of tomorrow. You could also have chart. You could have something called Kanban board as a part of your meeting, which are nothing but information radiator, which really talks about the items which are work items and where do they stand, and we'll really talk about this in some time. While this is happening, stand up. The next thing that comes in will be your sprint review. Okay, and when you talk about sprint review, we're talking about the demo that needs to happen. You agreed that in the beginning of the sprint, within 3 weeks, you will deliver a list of 100 story point worth of work. You agreed on a sprint backlog. The team started to work on those tasks that we defined. They were running. We were having the stand-up meeting for 15 minutes. And then we were looking at the burn down chart and Kanban board to understand at the end of the 3 week sprint, we realize we need to give the demo of the shippable product. Okay, this shippable product in generally is given by the quality assurance guy, because he understands the functional requirements, he understands the technical requirements, and they do in-depth testing. So in general, the quality assurance guy will do the demo to the product owner and the other stakeholders. So, and based on that, you'll take a feedback on what have you released, and you will formally close the sprint with the help of sprint retrospective. And retrospective is nothing but lessons learned, which means what went well, what can be better. So these ceremonies that you see, sprint planning, sprint backlog, stand-up meeting, sprint review, and retrospective, are 5 ceremonies that we are talking about. We are talking about 2-3 artifacts, which are release backlog, product backlog, sprint backlog, and then you are talking about some key tools like burn down chart and Kanban chart. If you understand only this much, then you kind of understand sprint. You understand the Scrum framework methodology. Let's look at this diagram one more time. Okay, so So you understood that you want to drive that mobile project. You've broken down into a small little sprint, but you understand the whole set of requirement with the help of product backlog. This is the guy who keeps the track of the product backlogs. He put the list of features and prioritize and backlog refinement and the list that we want to do. Out of this, you have a set of developer and testers who are there, and a scrum master who is really facilitating the process and meeting rooms and arranging any roadblocks and impediment. He's taking care of all this with the whole list. He said, no, we cannot do this in one sprint. We'll probably break this into 7 sprints, and every sprint will have some set of requirement, and based on that we will move forward. Out of this, the top prioritized features and stories will go first on the sprint backlog. This is exactly what happens in a sprint planning meeting. In general, it has a 8 hours of planning, but if your sprint is anywhere less than 2 hours, less than 2 weeks, then probably you need a couple of hours of sprint planning. All these ceremonies are time boxed. You really go ahead and look at the number of stories that you will want to achieve as a part of sprint backlog. You really want to understand the list of tasks. Those tasks get pulled up by the developer and task members as a part of that sprint backlog. You start running the sprint between 1 to 4 weeks. In like reference now, we said we'll probably do a sprint of 3 weeks. Every 24 hours, there is a stand-up meeting which happens where you have the product owner, you have the team. They really focus on what they did yesterday, what will they do today, what is the plan for tomorrow. We're also looking at some references like rundown chart or a Kanban chart, and looking whether the project is doing, how well the project is progressing. Once the sprint is done, you actually have your first demo ready, which means the first increment ready, which means the first working portion of the software ready. You call in for a small demo. Product owner is there, the stakeholder is there. Generally, either the developer or quality assurance team does the demo. Most probably the quality assurance team, and then decide on acceptance of done on that. And based on that, you are also kind of doing the, while all this is happening, you are, like what we said in the cycle, you have a lot of testing, development, everything running at the same time. So there's a lot of planning which are actually going at the same time. And then it ends up by sprint retrospective, where you really figure out what went well, what did not do well, and what can be improved. Based on that, one sprint gets over, another sprint starts. But the idea is you'll have to attain the entire product backlog that you want to achieve. Okay, that in nutshell is an example of the Scrum process. Questions before I talk about estimations so far? Anybody has any questions so far?
Raj, two questions.
Yes. Yes,
PO or definition of ready means this is ready for test, or
yeah.
it's ready for release, something.
Yeah, when you look at definition of ready, which means actually it's ready for testing,
Okay.
and DOD, which means it's complete. You have actually accepted the way you have defined that is how we will go ahead. And if you have meet those criteria, then you probably meet that your UAT is complete and you've really accepted definition of done. We have accepted the requirement.
Okay. UAT is done. Yeah.
Right. Question. What else you have on this?
Hello, Raj.
Yes.
If you have any user story document, can you please show? It will get a overview how the user story document is getting implemented and all. So if you have any document, can you
Right.
show?
Right. I mean, I like the way, you probably, we can take the reference of what we've been talking so far, right? We've really spoken about one example of a document that we were referring to, and I'll probably can show that even now so that people understand this a little better. Scrum is an easy framework to understand, but it's a complex complex in implementation. So I can actually show you And we can, like the way we actually drew the example of product of a burn down chart, we can take an example of how is the user story looking. Let's take an example of that and I'll show you that quickly. Where is the Excel file? Did we lose our Excel file? Yeah, here we go. We'll take an example of like what I said, most things can be driven on our Excel also, but then there is something that called Jira, which is an important tool. We are talking about an example of a project, a Scrum project. So we'll take an example and I'll probably show this. Why is the mouse moving so slow? So we are talking about a website, and we say we are taking an example of an online website that we are trying to be built. We'll say dealmart.com. Okay. Then we are also going to talk about people who will be a part of it. So we will look at the Scrum team, and Scrum team will have QA, of course, the product owner. You'll have the Scrum Master as a part of it, and you will have this document which is created by product owner. If you have a name there, or you can mention owner there. We said, okay, we want this is a project which is there. We want to build this project. Dealmart.com online website. I am in the process of writing few things. One, we want to write the epic. We want to give an idea of story, and I want to give a little more understanding of not only that. You remember I did speak about something called story points and which sprint that it will fit in. Epic, like what I said, are very large requirement. Okay, and so one of the epic that we will take, we said we want the website to be launched. You say for a new e-commerce website, there is a business value which is created when a customer is able to buy a product. This is a large requirement. Why do we say a large requirement? We're talking about a little bigger requirement. Probably merge this, put this in different color, we wrap this. Okay, this is a new requirement which is there. Now let's look at different user stories which can be part of it. Okay, so that is that is the epic. We could probably have a little more details on this. You could have a user story ID. You could have feature, or they also say sometimes title. And we'll take an example of user story. Let's take two example of user story 001, user story 002. There can be many more, but I'm going to take an example of two user stories. Look at the feature that I'm trying to understand. Okay, I'm trying to understand the feature as a first time user. The payment can be done as a guest user is an example of a feature that we are trying to build. And I'm taking another one as a first time user. The able to register. There can be many more, but we talk about one feature that we want trying to achieve. We are trying to understand the epic, which is a large requirement. It is only able to create value when a customer is able to buy a product. We are looking at two features that we are trying to achieve. There will be many more, but in this time we are saying we are able to the user should be able to register themselves, and the user should be able to buy or probably process a user be able to process the payment as a guest user. Like what I said, user stories are nothing but like a test case, but don't have to be very precise and very descriptive like the way we defined in the on our classic project management style. In this case, we can just write as a first time user to the e-commerce website and say, I want to be able to buy a listed product so that I can use. Similarly, on this, on same reference and method, you probably want to say as a reference user, I want to be able to register self so that I can browse the product catalog. Okay, so we've taken an example of a project which is dealmart.com. We looked at the team, we looked at the product owner, we looked at the epic, which is a large requirement. We took a reference of two user ID. There are two features that we are trying to achieve. We are trying to achieve if the person is able to register themselves. We are trying to also seeing whether the person can go ahead and process a payment by just being a guest. So we are saying that user stories are defined here. We said, okay, first time users, I want to be able to buy a listed product as guest so that I can use it. And second one, I should be able to register myself because I should be able to use the product. This is generally a part that I thought I'll be using as a part of sprint one. Second one may be a part of sprint two, and then there are other sprints that can point at it. I have given an idea of an estimation. I said this is a story size which is 3, and this is probably a story size which is 8. I'll talk about this in a while. Okay, but what happens in this case, this is the way you probably will end up requiring defining all the epics, all the user story, all the features, all the user details of test cases, which is the user story in itself, which sprint will be an example, and an estimation will be around this. Okay, this is an example of of a classic product backlog, which has the details of task and user story and which estimation and story point which can be there. Of course, we can have a little look. If I have something configured already in Jira, I can show you either from my office, and I'm seeing if there is a test environment for one of the students that I was doing in. Let me see if I have something there on Jira. Let's look that as an example. I'm seeing whether we have a project here. It really does not have any project, but maybe just for the reference of the class, I'll create a project in Jira just to show how does it look like for all of you. Okay? Let's do that in a minute. I'll do an express space. I am building a website. Which is, this is a tool which is called Jira. It's get extensively used for Scrum, but again, like what I said, it's used extensively for other modules too. But for now, we're going to use a Scrum project. We're going to use a project called dealmart.com. A project is created, and if you go back when project, and if I do a drop down here, you will see there is, if I click on this, below this you will see a project with the name dealmart.com, and we are under that. Classically, it should have a product backlog, so I'm going to a product backlog. Before the product backlog can start, I will add an epic. Okay, I've created an epic which is there. I probably am busy having my first release, which is done. So I'm going to give a version also for now. For now, version 1. I'm going to start probably week's time. I'll probably complete this on 3 weeks sprint. I create a version. I have an epic which I wanted to build for my website. I have a version which I have first version that I'm trying to release. Okay, I'm going to close this for now. Okay, and on the backlog, I want to have some user stories that I wanted to create, isn't it? I wanted to create a user story. We said as a user story, I'm going to create a user story. Either I can use this or I can use this. Either ways, I'm creating a user story. You see there is an epic, there will be a bug. There are many other things. Don't really worry about that. For now, I'm creating a story. If there are some attachment which is there, If there are some issue that you want to, or version, we are going to put that as a part of the first version release. uh, we want to assign this to people, you want to link this to an epic. Okay, it's a part. Right now we've not really defined a sprint, so don't worry about this. I'm going to create one more of the user story, which is this one. Okay, I'm going to link this to one of the user stories that we have created, an epic link, and I said created. Okay, so what we've just done, we've created a project, we've created a two user stories under one epic and a version that we want to release. So today I have a product backlog, I do have a project, I do have an epic which is there. Okay, now it's time that I want to say that there will be many other which are a part of it, but I want to create as a part of my sprint. For sprint, I thought, okay, I have so many things as a part of my product backlog, let this go as a part of the sprint number one. Okay, I want to create one more sprint, and as a part of this, second one will go as a part of sprint. Then I'll start the sprint. That is where we have a sprint planning. We look at the task, we look at those activities which get started, and end of the day, we are looking at a board called Kanban board. We look at a list of items which are there, where how many items are there on the to-do list, or are they part of in progress list, are they part of done, just an understanding of that. One fine day after 3 weeks, I will complete the sprint. Now, if you have some items which are there, and you realize, oh my god, I wanted to complete a sprint, but there is one item which is already there and it is actually as a part of in progress, it did not complete. Ideally it should be a definition of done, it has met all the criteria, UAT isn't should be here, but it's not really completed. Assuming there are many, you want to go ahead and click on complete sprint, and he says, no, listen, I don't think it is complete because 0 issues were done, it is just incomplete. What do you want to do? If I click on complete, which means it's pending, it will go back to the product backlog. Or I can put done, which means it's complete now. I can say complete. I say great, one sprint is completed. In between, like what I said, there will be a burn down chart. Okay, still loading. Sadly, the network is a little slow today because of the rain in Bangalore. But yeah, something similar to what we have drawn in Excel file will be here too. Okay, and you want to know how fast we moved in. There are other charts like burn up chart or sprint also. There are two topics. One is velocity, one is estimation. I'll probably park this for the next class. It's not an extensive topic, but that's where we will get started and we'll talk about it. Then I said there is also something called dashboards or boards will be there. One is this one. Otherwise, our board where we really look at something called something like this will be there, where we look at Kanban board, where it really talks about where are the products, where does it really lie. There are two tools that we spoke about when we were taking a reference of. One was the burn down chart, which we also practically go on ahead and created it. And the second was a Kanban board, which is the way we looked at the file, which looks at to do, in progress, and complete, something like. Yeah. For the next class, I'm going to talk about 3 things. Okay. Something like this will be there. That is the information task board, which is your Kanban board, where we have products and items, where we know which one is in to-do list, which one is in progress, which was in verify. We look that as in Jira. We want to see this, and we want to see the burn down chart also on a regular basis, what's happening there. And end of the demo, it will be something like this, where you can call the testers and product owner, and they really look at the product, and he will explain the first shippable product. It will all be explained on that process. Okay, Does that make you comfortable? Somebody had a question to how does a product backlog looks like? How does it look like in Jira? We've taken a reference on an Excel file. You probably should have a more understanding of what we are talking about. And we just went through a quick life cycle and express fast speed on Jira. Jira is a 30 hours course. But at least in a project perspective, I've explained you how does it really work out in Jira. Does it answer your question?
Yes, Raj.
Okay. If you need more templates and formats, I like what I said. I have some million things that I have. Whenever you need it, I can pass on. But today we went on the Agile framework. We understood the rules. We understood definition ready, definition of done. We looked at epic story, user stories, the whole framework. What is actually pending? We took an example of a burn down chart. We looked at Kanban board. And you remember there was a word called Scrum and Kanban together mixed is called Scrum Man. So some people use Scrum plus Kanban board together, which is together is called a Scrum method. So in this case, what is pending is estimation in Agile. What is also pending, I will a Kano model that we talk about, and velocity. If you understand three more things, and you have probably a little hands-on experience in Jira, you understand those values, principle, mindsets, and the entire framework of Scrum. We have taken an example of a epic, a user story. You just looked at how does it really map on Jira. If you understand only this much, you are all very, very good to kind of take it forward. But three small pieces that I have it, I will cover this in the next class because of the restriction that we have in time today. Next week, of course, we have 2 weeks, two classes, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. So which is we have a first and a second. It will be a 3-hour class. We will talk about that. Okay. Now, your questions so far in today's topic, and specifically Kapil, because you also have an interview which is coming in. Let me know where is your question there. Is Kapil there? Yeah. Okay.
Seems clear to me.
Yeah.
Mainly, I'm working on this Jira, ensuring this type of thing.
Okay. Well,
So yeah, seems clear to me. Two, three things that I didn't get it right, but later I get it. Like epic in scenario. And, uh,
yeah.
also,
Okay.
I would like to know more about estimation.
Right. There was a distortion in the line, Kapil. I'm not sure whether I heard your question correctly, but I hope you got a lot from the class today. But in any ways,
Yeah, yeah.
you have my reference. If you have any question specifically on your Scrum Master interview, if you have, we can talk offline. Not a problem, and I'll probably ensure that you are more ready for that interview there. But the process is
Yeah, yeah.
much only, minus those three things that we did not cover: estimation, velocity, and there is a method that we use for prioritization, which is called the Kano model. We'll talk about that in the next class. But
Yeah, seems pretty clear to me.
yeah, the concept is very simple, straightforward. We took a reference of something that we drew ourselves. We built a burn down chart. We probably looked at in Jira. We looked at those values, principles, some process, some ceremonies, some artifacts. I will talk about the others. But in nutshell, we've actually completed the whole of Scrum, and the foundation of Agile is something that we've covered. Okay. Anybody beyond Kapil has a question on today's class?
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, Rajesh.
Sprint, usually here we see the sprint is for 2 weeks.
Yes.
So like here, as we discussed in the class, it was 4 weeks also. I'm a bit confused on
I don't know whether it's my network or it is, but today I'm finding it a little difficult to hear. What about the other participant? Are you able to hear the questions?
No, Raj, we are also hearing the same issue which they are asking.
Oh, is it?
Network issue.
Okay, okay. But
Yes.
maybe Rajesh, if you can repeat that your question one more time. Let's see. I just heard
Sprint,
you told me that the Scrum is out there is of 2 weeks, and then after that, yes,
yeah, but here I see like it could be for 4 weeks also.
yeah, yeah. Is that the question?
Yeah, that's a question.
Okay, okay. Sprint can actually be from 1 week to a maximum of 4 weeks, but based on your project needs and requirement, you can decide. Who decides? The team along with product owner decides on the frequency or duration of every sprint. It's all up to the project requirement and how much time that you have, you decide it can do. And that's why when we spoke about the time box method, because we said no, Scrum is about 5 ceremonies which are time boxed, which means there's a specific time I cannot exceed. Like when we say in a day, when we meet for a stand-up meeting, we cannot exceed 15 minutes, the time which is there. Likewise, when we are doing a sprint planning exercise, if you decide that is uh, your sprint is only for 2 weeks, you cannot spend more than half day on your sprint planning exercise. But if you are doing for 1 week, 2 hours is fine. 4 weeks, 1 day also you can spend. But you decide on your sprint. The project team decides, and when you say project team, of course, the product owner along with the team decides a lot of things themselves. It's all up to what you decide, and based on your project requirements. Good question. What else? Anybody else has a question?
One more question, Raj.
Yes.
What is the difference between this burn down chart versus Kanban chart?
Okay. We looked at this burn down chart, right? And when you look at burn down chart, we know we plotted two things. One, we looked at a duration, and on your another axis, we looked at the hours that we have, because we know it's a time bound thing. We need to move faster. You have only, let's say, 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 1 week or 4 week of time. Only that much time you have. You cannot have more time than that. So which means I need to work based on the time. So based on that, I actually have a logical state where I will have that amount of hours that I have. I actually should complete that many hours to be able to finish most work within that period of time. That will be an ideal situation, and that is burn down chart. Hmm? Which gives you an understanding of how much time did we actually use in a day against the effort which was planned for that, and how are we progressing. Are we progressing good? Are we progressing bad? Because if you see a line which is above this, I think we are way below the time. If it is here, I think we are faster. Line is below, then we are faster than the planned time. Now that is a burn down chart. Burn up chart is basically here, it's about effort and time. Here we know we talk about other features and not really about on hours, but we look at number of features which are still remaining, and that needs to be taken into consideration. When you talk about Kanban chart, and we actually showed this in Jira, but I'll probably show you one more reference of a Kanban chart, something like this that we were talking about. Every day, there will be most people prefer it either the board or on a chart. They write every day that today I have around 8 or 100 user stories that I want to complete within that sprint. So every day I know there might be some stories which are in to-do state, some which are in progress, some which are in done. I should be able to look at a board without saying anything. I should be able to understand the entire status of the project today, the sprint today. How many items are in progress? How many are done? How many are bug? How many are user stories? That is why you see they use different colors, because they define the value or differentiate between different level of work, and we understand where work is, how much work, and where does it stand today, without even writing those big reports and email information. Just by having a board, I am able to understand how many user stories are there, which stage they are there, and this color tells you, okay, here I see a lot of yellow colors. Maybe it looks like there is a lot of bugs which are there. They will define the criteria of that. So this is a Kanban board. This is a burn down chart. It's a different thing. One talks about the status of how much work and effort. One talks about those specific user stories, bugs, epics, and where do they stand in terms of the whole stage is concerned of the project. Are they in to do? Are they in progress? Have they completed? Or they are rework? We should be able to know. Using these two tools every day, I'll be able to understand, listen, how much work, how much effort, where everything stands. These two tools are good enough to manage that. And we could do this in Excel. Scrum Ban, of course, we could do this in board or on a chart, or you can use Jira. Like the way I showed you on Jira, this is the way you do it. Hmm? Right. What else we have a question for today? And it's an endless slide of 127 page. That is an extensive curriculum on PMI ACP. But what do you need from a book perspective? I think you have known most of it. We've taken practical examples. We've done it ourselves just to show you an understanding of how does it look like in Excel file, how does it look like in Jira, what is the process, what are the ceremonies, what are the artifact, what do you mean by time box, how do we do the whole process, that what does a product owner does, what a scrum master does, what the team does. So that is good enough for you to understand. In fact, if you actually go and do a scrum master training, this is exactly what they will teach you in 2 days time and charge you a lot of money. But we manage, because of this curriculum, we understand this free of cost, and we understand everything probably to the expectation of what the job role requires for a scrum master. Right. Any more questions, ladies? Savita, you have any questions?
I have a difference between Kanban
Yeah,
and Scrum.
Kanban and
Scrum.
Scrum. Okay. See,
Yeah.
yeah, you look at this chart that we were initially showing. We said it's a chart and its value and principle. We say most projects are done using Scrum methodology. And when you say Scrum methodology, of course, we are talking about this model. This is Scrum, right? But then some people are using also Kanban board. They don't use framework as such. They will use only the board method. Rest all, it's about listing those tasks they will have. They will review on daily basis. It is called an information radiator because you don't need to write extensive report or send email or information or anything. It is there the moment you come into the room. You know how many tasks are pending, how many in progress, what are those, is it bugs, is it stories, is it task. Just work on that, and that's about it. You meet daily and start, go back to your work and you work on that. Nothing much is given. Okay, so Scrum is very confined to that board with very little things. Scrum is that whole process of 5 ceremonies, 3 artifacts, and time box method. And sometimes that is why they say there's also called Scrum Ban, which is a mix of Scrum and the board Kanban together, is followed in a methodology called Scrum Ban. That is why this is Scrum Ban, or Scrum Ban slash XP, extreme programming, constitutes 70%. 70% of the agile projects are driven using that method. But Scrum may not include the board, but Kanban includes only the board. Framework, forget about it.
Do you have an Scrum Ban, like how you show the board?
Yeah, I can probably show that as a reference in one of the class next time. Let's see if I have now. If I find it very quickly, I'll show you. Otherwise, in the next class. Okay, so let's do that. Let's see what happens here. Okay, and like what I said, this project Jira as such is used extensively for many other things. And maybe I can take a reference of last project release. I don't, it's very, very slow. So Let's hope that it comes up and I'll be able to show you that. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let me see the result board. Yeah. Hopefully it will come in. The speed is not great today, but let's see. Yeah, look at this is a classic example of a Scrum board. We have 100 items which are there. Now, when you look at this, some will be a user story. Those green ones are stories. You probably will see something on, the severity, whether it's high severity, low severity. Sometimes on different color, you'll probably identify. You have many settings which are there. If people want to understand Jira extensively, ACP 100 is the course. You'll get to know. But if you see this purple thing, it is about an epic which is there. Similarly, there are many things which will be there as a part of this is an example of a Kanban board. I can probably pick something and move to the next, which means in progress. At any point of time, either I can use Jira or on a board where I say, okay, these are the things which are there in queue, these are something which will be there in progress, these are something which are done. I should be able to move things on the need basis and finish this. So this is an example of a Kanban board. What else we have?
So Kanban is a separate process like Scrum, or
Yeah,
like
some
part.
people like that's why I said some people don't really worry about the framework at all. I just don't want to worry about this or any other model. Scrum says this whole thing needs to be there, 5 ceremonies, 3 artifact, time box, you do it. Some people says forget it, I'm not really bothered about anything. What I want to know is I just want to have this board. I want to know how much task I have and where do they stand. Based on this, I'll take a call. I don't want to have those stand up meeting, review and all. No, I just will just look at my list of tasks and I will work on this task daily. And this is a Kanban board, and I'm just working on this. Nobody expects you to follow anything else except this board, where you have the list of work that the entire work should be here, and where does it stand? That's about it. That's Kanban method.
Okay, so there are no ceremonies. It's only this board in Kanban.
Yeah, that is the minimal skeleton that you have around governance, isn't it? You just need nothing, only a board, and which is this, which should give you the entire list of stories, epic, users, task, or a bug should be here. Everything should be here.
Okay.
Sachin, question. Okay, anything from Snehal and Sukanya and Komal? Right, I think with that, I'll probably take it a wrap. We've actually exceeded 3 and almost close to 4 hours without a break. Okay, good. We're utilizing our time very well. Okay, and so I think we've utilized the time well. You understand now Agile extensively. We looked at the background, we looked at the values, we look at the principles, we took a framework, we just explained this, we looked at Jira, we look at probably playing around with the tool. We've probably done it a lot in this last 4 hours, and lots to digest in today's time. So I hope you had a meaningful session today. Next week, 6:30 Saturday, we'll meet again. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Tomorrow there is no class.
Yeah, tomorrow there is no class. Yes, tomorrow there is no.
Okay.
Raj, one request here, like
Yes.
next week, can we have it only on Saturday? Sunday we may not be available.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. I hope everybody is okay with that. But if anybody has a problem, please reach out to me or Prajwal separately. I'm fine with that. Okay. So let's plan it only for Saturday and try to complete, because now we will go back to traditional project management. We want to move forward from charter and move forward there. So, but a lot of understanding on Agile gets over today. So next Saturday, 6:30 to 9:30, we will meet again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raj.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have a nice week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.